Hey there, I was just finishing up this nice chair. Welcome to Papa's Workshop. I'm your host, Papa. Today on the program, we're going to be talking about a little assessment called the Minnesota Rate of Manipulation, or the Minnesota Manual Dexterity Test. If you'll follow me, we'll explain to you what the test entails. You're probably wondering what this test is all about. Originally published in 1931, a year before this bad baby was made, the Minnesota Rate of Manipulation Test was formed to assess an individual's fine motor coordination skills as well as their manual dexterity. Since it came out in 1931, researchers have made multiple improvements and revisions upon the Minnesota Rate of Manipulation Test. It has been found to have a high test-retest reliability as well as predictive validity. So, let's dive more into this test. Now, the Minnesota Rate of Manipulation Test is not for any specific age range. However, it is primarily used with adults and for pre-employment screenings. Now, individuals in these industries typically need good manual dexterity and hand-eye coordination. Common injuries to these areas include tendon lacerations, nerve impingements, trauma to the soft bone and muscles, maybe they had a carpal tunnel surgery, or they had a stroke that is affecting one side. The Minnesota Manual Dexterity Test has 5 subtests that need to be completed, the first one of which is called the placing test. So, if you have your board here, there are going to be a row of holes right down this side, and then you will have the same amount of pegs right here. So what you will ask the client to do is you will have them pick up one of these and then place it in this hole. And you want them to do this over and over until one entire column is full. And then they will do this across the entire board. Subtest 2 is called the turning test. What you will have the client do is pick up one side, flip it over with the other hand, and place it back in the same spot, going across the board until you have gone all the way along the first row, and then going back down and across every single row until you are done. The third test is called the displacing test. This is when you have the client have all of the pegs in place, and then you will ask them to take each one out column by column. So they will start and they will take every single peg out until they are completed. The fourth subtest is the one hand placing and turning test. So with only one hand, the client will pick up the disc or peg, flip it over to the opposite side, and then place it in the hole, going column by column until they are done with the entire board. The fifth and final subtest is the two-hand placing and turning test. The client will pick the disc up with one hand, transfer it to the other hand while flipping it over to the opposite side and then placing it in the board, going all the way down the column and then across the board until they are finished. Now, the strengths of this assessment are that it's easy to administer and there's very few supplies that are needed. It is also applicable across most of the lifespan, and it can be used to assess people from a variety of different jobs. Now, while there are many strengths, there are a few weaknesses. The test is quite costly at over $250. It only assesses an individual's ability to manipulate one uniform size object, and the norms, reliability, and validity data is pretty outdated as it was reported back in 1943. So, there are a few different domains that are being assessed here. Job performance is being assessed under the occupation of work. Muscle endurance as well as control of voluntary muscle movement is being assessed underneath client factors of body functions, and motor and process skills are being evaluated underneath performance skills. Now, this assessment is an important tool in the work and industry scope of practice. Work hardening and return to work programs may focus on improving manual dexterity as well as rapid hand-eye coordination. Overall, the Minnesota Manual Dexterity Test, also known as the Minnesota Rate of Manipulation Test, is an assessment that can be used for a variety of different injuries within the work and industry scope of practice. Well, I hope you learned a lot about the Minnesota Manual Rate of Dexterity Test. That about does it here for me in Papa's Workshop.